Welcome to the Gravel Lot, the place where bikes are for everyone.
The Gravel Lot podcast is presented by Be Free Ride Bikes Apparel, providing a fully customized cycling apparel experience to provide you and your team the attention to detail and personal touch that you deserve.
And also brought to you by Grimpour Brothers Coffee, offering handmade coffee roasted weekly in small batches to give you the finest quality coffee to start your day. Choose their subscription service and earn your free bag of coffee today.
And by Hand Up Gloves. Great gear, better times. Providing a wide range of apparel for bikes, snow sports, and golf in multiple designs and fits to let your personality shine.
Our goal with the Gravel Lot is to inspire cyclists of all stripes to ride bikes, share their story, and have fun. We love all bikes and anyone who wants to ride them. So no matter where you sit on the spectrum of bikes, we'll always have a place for you in the Gravel Lot.
And now, the hosts of TGL, John Woolry and Doug McClintock.
Hello and welcome back once again to the Gravel Lot, the official podcast of all things cycling. I'm John, that's Doug, and we are once again so happy that you found us. So whether you are an existing Pebble or you are entirely new to the show, welcome. We call you Pebbles for those new people. We call you Pebbles because we're all Pebbles in the Gravel Lot of this podcast or life, I
Life.
guess, right?
Yeah,
Metaphor.
metaphor.
Yes. So
Message.
for the new folks, what is the gravel lot? So long story short, we fully believe that the only thing better than a bike ride is sharing one with your friends. Pretty simple, right? And I think we can all agree with that's something that everything is better when you do it with a community. So Doug and I also love riding bikes, and we love hearing from people share their personal journeys. And it's something that I think hearing them for almost 200 episodes now has changed Doug and I kind of forever. So we think that it's very important to be able to tell people's stories and allow them to tell it in their own way.
Agree.
So I think with that, we also want you guys to know that whether you have comments in the comment section or if you want to send us questions, whatever, we want you guys to know that you will always have a place here with us in the gravel lot. So if you like what you hear today and you believe in what we're doing, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all the stuff that the internet wants you to do to let us know or let it know that you're enjoying what we're doing, because then it'll serve you more of this stuff. So then you can go find the other 200 and some episodes that we've done.
Not all of them are on video, however, but we do have some entertaining videos that do exist from history.
There is weeks worth of content, whether it's on the podcast or within YouTube. So
and you know what? When you're watching or listening to that comment, please leave us a comment and let us know. If you're watching the live stream right now, leave us comments below, questions, things you've got going on. Check the link in our show notes. Head on over to thegravellot.com. Visit our Etsy store. Go support us on Patreon if you can. That'd be excellent. We would love to have you aboard, be a patron, so you know who's coming up early, what we got going on, little deep insights into our world. We know there's got to be more content coming there. John and I got a lot of life stuff going on right now. So there's
and we keep making it worse too.
Yeah, we do.
I think that's like both of our problems.
Yeah, that's our problem. It's like, hey, can I pile more stuff on
Right.
top of me?
Right.
Yeah, so it's not going to get any better, but we'll continue to try to get better at what we do. And, you know, most importantly, go visit our partners that we mentioned in the intro. They do amazing things and they support us, and we're so thankful for them. But you can show your thanks to them by purchasing their wares. They do an amazing job at everything they do. That's why we partner with them. We love them. They're great people. So if you want to send questions, feedback, any of that stuff, go to the website. You can do it on any of the social platforms at the Gravel Lot, all those spaces, or you can send us a text or a voicemail at 513-400-5577. We would love to hear from you. If we get another warranty phone call, I'm going to be very sad.
Hey, Doug, did you know that your car has, it's getting ready to go out of warranty?
Y'all aren't really like getting on the voicemail the way that I wish you would. Like, can people start pranking us or something?
Yeah, it's such an easy, like it's
like,
just such fertile
You know
ground.
what it is, John? You know what it is?
Because there's no one there. You're by yourself. Like no one's going to yell back.
You know what it is? That is definitely part of it, but it's also the society we live in. No one calls anymore. Everyone texts.
But they could text.
Sure, you can text us. You up?
Like that wasn't. I mean, that was a checkers move. That really wasn't a chess move there. So
that's true. Yeah, sorry. That's right. Correct. All right. Right. You up? We will not get back to you.
Right. No, generally we're not up. So
yeah, we're generally asleep. So John, how's the ride been the past couple weeks here?
Well, I'm going to try and do better this week about calibrating my live time versus my future podcast time. So we talked about King CX was coming up last time we recorded. It has since happened. Man, I can't even. It was so good to be able to see all of these people, that just our bike family, our bike community, that whether it was our local bike community or our bike family that came in from the entire North American continent, it made me feel good. It made me feel like, okay, we're going in the right direction. Things are like clicking off, and it was one of those big check boxes of going back to normalcy. So for everybody that I got to talk to, for everybody that I got to hug, I love you. I missed you. It was so great to see you. And I'm already looking forward to the next one. So the other thing that I want to make a comment of is this is going to be, I think if my time is right, it's going to be after this podcast goes live. So it's going to be National Trans Awareness Week. So I think bringing some light to that, I think this is the time to do that. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to some of our people that we hold to our closest, and doing everything we can to lift them up and support them, whatever they need from us.
Yeah, I think we'll probably share out some of the stuff from those folks, and the things they've got going on and the things they've done and the shows they've been on with us and PBW and all that sort of stuff, just to remind y'all to listen and pay attention. I echo what you're saying, John. Like, we had an excellent weekend. I think we only missed one person on our list. Our apologies, Jeff. We'll see you soon.
That was a big one too. I felt
Yeah,
that was
Pebbles, you'll know who it is.
TBD, yeah.
TBD coming to you in January.
Yeah, there's a little you gave a little Easter egg in there.
But I think, it was excellent doing all that stuff. Tough though to rehash some stuff that, like, so it got some feels, John.
Yeah,
I was in my feelings a bit. There's some stuff I didn't want to rehash, but it was good to rehash. But yeah, I echo that, man. Hugs to everybody. It was excellent seeing all y'all. Having family in town is wonderful. Petting your dogs, petting you, whatever.
Whoa. That goes back to the whole you up.
with consent.
So let me ask you this: is since you were in your feels, and I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about with the rehashing things, but watching bike racing, what did it do for you inside your noggin about going out and wanting to pin a number?
I did not want to pin a number at all. Like, and I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, the thing I want to touch on is, like, I got to watch people I love and people I care about go and do their thing and kick ass at it, have struggles, go through all that. And I was able to be there and appreciate it in a very pure sense. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And I was totally good with that. And I think that's like marks a very different place than I was when I last was at a cross race.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to kind of be in that space. I didn't want to do it at all. I wanted to go ride. Like, I was pissed I was not on my bike, but I did not want any of the other things that were not surrounded by the crap that is bike racing. Like, I wanted to ride my bike on that course with my friends, but not have any of the, like, an announcer shout my name or any of the
stress of feeling. Yeah. I think there's an idea in there somewhere.
Yes, there's a few ideas.
Yeah.
But all of them require time and effort.
Well, we got a year. We got, like 51 weeks. So
51 weeks. Sure. Great. Cool. I'm sure they're full of nothing important. I'm sure you have nothing to worry about.
Nothing's going to happen. Nothing big's going to happen. You just got married. What else could happen?
Nothing at all. Nothing in this world can happen. I think it's funny though. Like, it was fun catching up with people and seeing, like, how things have grown and changed in everybody's space that they're different in now. And it was exciting because everybody's, like, moved some stuff in a different way, and it's cool seeing where everybody's at. So, thank you to the entire Kings organization, everybody that threw Kings CX. Scott, Jerry, Julie, all the volunteers that helped tear tape and put tape up and all that stuff. Everybody at Deerfield Township, the entire OVCX community, Ryan and all of his OVCX minions. Like, what an excellent time. Cross racing is back in the Midwest, and it was just, it was fantastic. So hope to see all y'all next year. Come visit. So. Well, without any further ado, I think it is definitely time for us to get started with today's guest. And she's currently a static photo, but I believe she will no longer be. Oh, there she is.
That was outstanding. I was like, that's really well posed.
Yeah, she's holding that pose perfectly. But today promises to be, yet again, another show in the ongoing series of we interview people who are smarter than us. That is generally how our show is structured. And we continue again in that space. Our guest this week is a PhD and the Director of Research, Development, and Assessment at Premier Sport Psychology. And not only does she work with all sorts of athletes trying to fix what's going on inside their noggins, but she also happens to be a pretty excellent bike rider and gives back to the bike community through so many various forms. Most recently, she has sought to bridge the gap in the femme-trans women's cycling world with the creation and development of Stamina Racing Collective, and we're excited to talk about that today. So we are super stoked to have her here and have this conversation. We're delighted to welcome Dr. Erin Ayala to our show. Erin, welcome to the Gravel Lot.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
This has been in the making, and I am super stoked that we get to have you here. There's so much to discuss and so many things. You're doing just all sorts of great stuff, and I think the Pebbles will be super stoked to hear about your process and how you've reached this point. So,
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. Like sometimes I also don't know how I managed to get all of the stars to align like they have. So it's pretty cool to reflect on it.
Well, then let's go down memory lane. I think that's that's where we always like to start, right? Like we like to start at the genesis. So when Erin was born, no, wait, how did you like find bikes? Was this an early adoption for you? Is this something that came? I mean, you grew up, if I'm not mistaken, in the Minneapolis area, and bikes are not a foreign thing to that community.
Yeah, so I grew up in like south of Green Bay, Wisconsin. And bikes were like, I don't know, they were a thing, but I didn't like, I had one, but I didn't love it. Like I used it once in a while, but I wasn't in a very like bike friendly town. I did like rollerblading. Like that was the cool thing to do.
Excellent. It definitely was at the time.
That totally dates you as well.
Right.
I feel like that's a very small niche time frame that I was also a part of.
Like middle school, it was like I was a very good rollerblader.
Excellent. I'm here for this.
To like, hop around town on my really heavy rollerblades.
Well, it's hockey adjacent, so it works for Wisconsin, right?
Especially Wisconsin, yeah. Yeah. So and then high school, I did like I was a rebel in high school, but I got away with it because I got really good grades. So I participated in sports, but it was like just to socialize. I was a very amateur JV athlete. And I dabbled in everything. I tried volleyball, basketball, cross country. And then I started track and field and I stuck with that till my senior year. I also did bowling team. Which was
excellent.
And then
so we were talking earlier in the green room and you said something and I was like, without even knowing where you grew up, that's super Midwest, but a high school having a bowling team is super Midwest too.
It was really funny. Like we got t-shirts made, like we went.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Did it have like a punny name?
Yeah, we were like what's it called? Like the obdurate magicians. Like one of our teachers said that we were obdurate, and I can't even remember what it means, but it's like stubborn and difficult or something like that. And we're like, we're going to use that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And now I'm going to Google.
All right. So
let me get into Google.
Before, that is like a Doug word. That's like a word that you would throw out there where I'm like, hold on, I gotta look that up and figure out what that is. Cause that's a
stubbornly refusing to change one's opinion or course of action.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Sounds like every teenager.
Yeah. And this was coming from like our chemistry teacher who was a Catholic nun. Like I went to a Catholic high school. And then I was also, I know like Doug, you were in this phase, like punk ska. So I would hang out with like the band guys and we'd wear like Converse All-Stars and we had a dress code at our high school and we always managed to like find creative ways to work around it.
So is that where the rebel comes in?
Yeah, I think so. Like always wanting to do something. Like I'm very stubborn and I always want to do things my own way. Like early little Erin, my mom used to joke that my first words were "No, I do it," because I wanted to do things my way.
Jeez, oh Pete.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was me in like high school, and then we would just hang out at coffee shops and like smoke cigarettes and play cribbage and drink coffee.
You guys are so badass.
Like right. Exactly. Yeah.
No, but there, yeah. I mean, when you're going
and like clove cigarettes were really big back then. So yeah.
I want to know about nuns bowling, but that's a whole separate podcast. I'm pretty sure. I think we could probably do like an hour on nuns bowling.
Yeah.
So you had a similar like kind of upbringing to me, you were kind of sort of involved in athletic pursuits, but it was more social. That was not like, you were not like, oh, I'm going to school to become a professional football player or whatever, right? That wasn't part of that.
Right.
What was your desire from a like scholastic point? You were obviously a good student. What were you looking at? What was your passion at that time?
I've always been really like achievement oriented. And so I wanted to like show, like, I don't know if it was like wanting acceptance or like proving things to someone else or like looking for my niche or this place where I would feel valued. Right. And I think part of it was just my family values. Like my dad was like, he was a business owner. He worked himself into the ground. He's now retired and a cyclist, like living life, like things are good. But I think I saw that when I was growing up. And so I saw him modeling, like having a work ethic. And so I just like worked my butt off, and then I played hard as well. And that's where I got the value of just like the social stuff and friends and things like that. So, yeah.
So at what point along the way do you feel like you found your thing? Like we're talking about high school and trying all these different sports and really experimenting with who am I, whether it's academically, musically, physically. Like at what point do you feel like the gears started to mesh for you?
I think it was grad school. Cause like college, so I went to an all women's college, which was awesome. And like one of the best things I ever could have done for myself, because I learned a lot about myself. And that was also when I came out as bi and realized that I was bi, because in like small town Wisconsin, that just like there weren't a lot of options. Like, like I didn't realize that was a thing. And then and so like, it's called St. Kate's is the name of the school. It was so good. And I think I started to kind of find myself there, and I was still very, very achievement oriented and grade oriented, but I also worked full time through undergrad. So I was just like always working. And so then like, again, looking for the next achievement and like the next thing on the ladder. So I was like, advisors suggested I apply to grad school. And so I was like, okay, I'll apply to grad school, like without really realizing like what that meant. But I also didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was, if I go to grad school and if I get a PhD in psychology, I'll be able to do all of the different things. So I can be indecisive and I'm able to procrastinate for another 6 years. It'll be great.
So why do you think psychology was that attraction to be able to be like, I can do whatever? Like, why did psychology fit the bill for that for you?
Yeah. Because I would have been able to like help people, right? So I could be a psychologist if I wanted to, which is what I ended up becoming. Even though therapy is like not my favorite part of my job, I do it and I enjoy it. I just get burnt out quickly. And I was, as an undergrad, I volunteered. I was a sexual assault survivor, like crisis counselor. And so in cities, if a person was raped and if they called the police, lots of ifs there, then they would bring them to a specific emergency department here in the Twin Cities, one of the hospitals. And they had what's called a SANE program, which is a sexual assault nurse examiner. And so they're trained forensic nurses who will like, they've got the UV light to look for like bodily fluids. They take photos to see if there's any damage. Like when there's penetration, they like scrape underneath fingernails. They do everything. And it's obviously a like ridiculously invasive procedure, especially after having been raped. And so they had advocates who would come. So that was me. So I was like little undergrad Erin going into these emergency departments, like advocating for sexual survivors. Yeah, it was heavy. And I would be on call. So lots of the calls would be like at like 2, 3, 4 a.m. Right. So then that's the next morning. And so that is what piqued my interest in psychology, when I was a psych major before that, but I just saw it as like a general thing and I liked people and I was interested in it. And so I just like picked it and ran with it. And counseling psych was like where I got that clinical stuff.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, like you made a comment about undergrad being able to allow you to focus on yourself, being in an all girls school, and I assume it's because there's not the kind of continuation of that distraction of like putting yourself into a box. But how does an 18, 19, 20-year-old Erin wrap her head around that responsibility? Like I can't imagine doing it, and I'm almost 40, and doing it justice the way that I feel like it would need to be done in that moment.
Yeah, you mean like the advocacy work?
Yes.
Or just like the identity stuff, or
the advocacy piece, the sane piece of it.
Yeah, we participated in it was like a 40-hour training where it was pretty intense, and they also, like, in hindsight, they did a pretty good job of talking about like cultural considerations and recognizing how some like communities and populations in the Twin Cities would be less likely to come forward. And so that was like a good foundation for me, because I've always been interested in diversity and inclusion. And I was a women's studies minor. And a lot of those classes were like overlapped with critical race theory and things like that. And so that foundation was really strong for me, like being in the room with the survivors, because I was able to see, like, I was living and breathing white privilege. Like I didn't have that experience right in front of me when I was in small town Wisconsin, because it was just so white. And then I come to the Twin Cities and it's like more segregated. And then I'm also working with a lot of international students who have very different experiences, living and breathing and driving in the Twin Cities. And so like just having more of those conversations and that exposure, and then seeing it in front of me in its like rawest form, I think forced me to learn, and to basically like shut up and listen and roll up my sleeves and put, in that case, survivors first, being like, what do you need right now in this moment? And so, yeah. And I also remember like one time I got in trouble or like scolded because there was a survivor who did not feel safe filing a police report. And I was like, you don't have to, like, this is your decision and you can change your mind if you want to. And my supervisor was really like mad at me for doing that. And I was like, but you said this was an option, right? Like this is their decision. We're not making more decisions for them. So it was interesting to find that piece of my identity and like that stubborn piece of me where I was able to stand my ground in ways that started to align with my values of like who I wanted to be as a person.
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of the interesting thing that I'm hearing from that is it seems like there was a point where you transitioned from obviously there's got to be a point when you walk into that the first occurrence is like, oh my God, like and you're on the back of your heels.
No matter how much training you've had,
right?
Yes.
They can tell you like this is what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's not a thing.
The first day as a doctor in the ER, like yes, you're fully prepared and you have everything that you need training wise, but really are you? When that car accident comes in or whatever. But it seems like there was a point where that pendulum started to swing to where you got off your heels onto your midfoot and then started to get on the balls of your feet and lean into it. And it seems like that kind of coincides with what you're talking about here of moving into grad school and choosing psychology.
Yeah, I think it was a cool way to like psychology was a good like safety net for me and like playground, because I was able to explore all of these different aspects of psychology, right? Like, and so for a while I was like specializing in like sexual assault and rape myths and rape culture. And then I, like in grad school, started to switch gears. And this is where the cycling came in. Like my cycling experience as an undergrad was like commuting on my bike while smoking a cigarette. And then my bike got
fair point. I did that too at IU. That's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Great. And then I was like, well, I guess I don't have a bike anymore. So, like, and then I went to grad school and I was like, I am not like, I look really good on paper. Like I've got the GPA, I've got a publication, I got the research experience, I've done all the things, but I am not happy with like who I am as a person. I started feeling embarrassed about like smelling like smoke when I walked into the classroom for grad classes. And so that was kind of this pivot point where I had to start to make a choice. And so in psychology, we talk about cognitive dissonance, like either you have to change your attitudes and justify your behavior, or you have to change your behavior. And so that was the point where I decided to change my behavior. And so I started running for self-care, and then just went from 0 to 100, like got the bug, started training for half marathons and then marathons. And then my friends started doing triathlons. So then I was like, I want to do that too. So then I started doing triathlons. And the writing was on the wall. I was like the bottom 20th percentile of swimmers. Like I was a bad swimmer. And
I can stay afloat and I can save someone.
Yeah.
That's it.
Same. It was bad. And then I was like top 20 percentile on the bike. And I was like, why don't I just bike?
That's that stubborn
cut out the
thing
middleman. We're going to do what I'm good at, right?
Yeah. We're just going to go like straight for the fun part. And so, yeah. And the rest is history. I was in upstate New York for grad school.
Albany, right? Like that's, it's a lot of snow in the winter, a whole lot of not riding your bike outside, like 8 feet of snow. Yeah.
Yeah. And like fat tire bikes weren't yet like super popular. I did a lot of snowshoeing and like hiking in the Adirondacks and like snowshoe races in Vermont. And so that was cool.
So where does the competitive streak come in? Is that part of that stubbornness of if I'm going to do something, I'm going to pin a number of some sort and try and go win it?
I think it's not necessarily even like this like competitive thing. It's like this like just I'm not good at moderation at all. And so it's like if I want to do something, I want to do it all the way. Right. So like Stamina Racing Collective is like
you're like, I'm all in. This is a whole
really
thing.
good example of that. Yeah. Right. Like I'm not gonna just like start a team. Like, no, we're going to create a nonprofit organization with a national platform. So like, it's not, and I'm going to do it. Right. And so I'm just not good at like, it's not even half-assing, but I don't feel like, I just don't like accepting like this good enough. And I don't know, it's always just been a part of me is like going all out, and it is a double-edged sword, like burnout all the time. Like stepping on people's toes and becoming micromanagey because I know that I can do it and it'll be easier if it's done faster, right? Like there's also a dark side to that quality, but that has helped me with those achievements in cycling.
So how did that trajectory go for you when from getting into being like, cool, triathlons are not my thing. The socks are short. I'm not into swimming. This is not my space. I just don't want to be in
everything's sticky.
Yeah, right. Everyone's peed on all their equipment. This is gross. This is not a place I want to hang out with people that pee on themselves all the time. But how does that process of like getting into cycling and how does that become such a part of your life? Like, what is that process like in that trajectory for you?
Yeah, the timing was, so I lived in upstate New York and then my spouse got a job in the Twin Cities. My spouse is from the Gulf Coast of Texas. And I was like, it'll be great. Don't worry.
Don't worry. You'll love the sugar sand beaches of Green Bay, Wisconsin.
That was great. Yeah. And we do love it. January and February kind of sucks, but so we moved to the Twin Cities and we're like, we like toured a couple of gyms, found a YMCA with a pool, but I was like, this is expensive. The drive is really long. I don't like swimming anyway. So like, maybe I'm just not going to do triathlons this year. And then I like Googled like Twin Cities cycling clubs and I found one. And I emailed the guy. His name is Randall Huskamp and he is like a really amazing soul in this community. And so he runs one of the largest cycling clubs. And I was like, and this is like Erin, the triathlete with a road bike that she never rides and probably no bike handling skills. Like, hi, I'm new to the Twin Cities. Can I join your ride? And he's like, yes, absolutely. Like, here's usually the pace and the distance. We'd love to have you. Here's where we meet. He was super inclusive, super excited, came up to me, introduced me from the start. I was one of the only women. And despite that, he always made me feel really valued and like welcomed. And he is the one after like a season, basically said like, do you ever race? Like you should try racing. And I had never considered racing bikes because I didn't know like that was a thing. Like I knew it was, I was never interested in it. Like I knew someone who did crit racing, but I like at the time thought it would be like track.
Yeah, and if you don't have like someone who's like, hey, here's how you get involved, then how the heck do you find out how to get involved? It's not like there are posters around and people are like, hey, this is how you get into bike racing at high school.
Yeah. So he was great, and he's like, we'll get you a team jersey, right? And then and you should do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So I was also training. I also had a friend who was training for Unbound. This was in 2017. And me not being good at moderation, I was like, oh, I'll do it too. I'll do the 100 mile. It'll be great. So for the Unbound 100 mile, the same summer I did my first crit race. And that's when I got the bug, was like that summer.
Because you had to put the miles in, right? You had to figure out how to be able to go do 100 miles of gravel. That's not like
I mean, you said it, you weren't good at moderation, so
no. Yeah. But honestly, I think one of the reasons like I did that through grad school was because if I registered for a marathon, or if I registered for a 100 mile gravel race or a 200 mile gravel race, I had to train for it. And so then it, in a good way, created boundaries for me for work and like studying, because I had to get those workouts in, because I know I don't want to show up to the race and like embarrass myself or quote unquote half-ass it, which is like now in hindsight, BS. Like you show up to a race, you race how you want, like you ride how you want, right?
Yeah.
But when entering a new sport, you're like, I have to prove myself. And so that's how I was feeling. And so then it allowed me to train better.
So what about the flip side of what you just said is what if you don't have that structure? What if Erin in grad school doesn't have something to train for? What happens?
Mm-hmm. I think I would have run myself and like worked myself into the ground. Which I like some weeks totally did. But I think
it's grad school, like that.
Yeah, right. So like it's grad school, but I think I would have gotten like much more burnt out. Like anxiety, depression probably would have gone through the roof. My identity would have been way too like caught up in like academics and grades and academic success. So I'm lucky I found that athletic identity because it helps to balance things out. So I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket, because before then, that's what I was doing.
I think it's interesting that due to the fact that you're like, I'm all in on whatever I'm doing, you've learned the management philosophy of giving yourself that outlet, giving yourself the other pieces of your life, right? I think there are so many people who like, they call them I'm type A. I just like to go get what I want to get. And they don't give themselves other spaces, and they just purely focus on one thing. I think you see people who are achievers in spaces that give themselves other outlets. They have a more holistic space to operate in, but you also knew all the mental crap that you were putting yourself through. So as you're in grad school and you're like doing these different things, you're like, I got to do all the work, and then I got to have this other thing. Are you cognizant of this? Are you having the conversation, like psychoanalyzing yourself through this? Because I've always wanted to ask someone who's in the psych space, like, do you do that to yourself?
Kind of, and sometimes, but also I think when it's turned around on you, it's harder to swallow. Like psychologists are also really good at like defense mechanisms and avoidance and the same things that everyone else is. Like we're really good at dodging the bullets. And like Brene Brown is like this really amazing social worker who does just awesome work. And she jokes that like clinicians need a special kind of therapist because they won't allow us to play the game.
You need like a super therapist. Like somebody, like it's kind of like Doug and I were talking before recording, is like there's like checkers and chess, and you guys understand all of the rules to chess and you already know the next 17 moves. So if somebody's coming at you with like a clinical diagnosis or a clinical approach to what you're doing and be like, nah, dog.
Yeah, like I see you.
Right. Like, not today. Nope, nope, not coming for me.
You need someone who's like, hey, it's Uno. Like, cool. I've never played Uno. This game sounds fantastic. You can skip people and make them draw 4. This is fantastic.
So, okay, I got one more question about your going all in on things. It's about you just made mention of giving yourself some space, and it's something that I know you know this because you're talking folks through it. But there's so much of this in cycling. There's so much of it in endurance sport where comparison being the thief of joy. So when you get into a sport, it's really easy, especially when you get into the racing world of, I just want to be X. I want to get to X watts per X kilos. And you start to ruin all of the progress. So when you're talking about being fully committed from Erin's perspective, does that enter the equation at any point? Or is it, I'm consistently trying to stay as engaged as I can, knowing what those limitations are, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think like one important piece of the puzzle that I forgot to mention is like when I was an undergrad, I totally worked myself into the ground and I did not exercise and I ate way too much Velveeta shells and cheese.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Also,
and I was not
Wisconsin. Hi.
know, right?
Like, come on.
I don't
That's
know
like
if
the
that
food of your people.
Like, I think that's anathema. I think that you're basically like, they're like, did you eat shells and cheese and not make it from scratch with actual cheese?
I know, right? Yeah. Like, so I was not healthy as an undergrad and I got really sick like 3 years in a row at the end of the spring semester. Like 1 year I had mono, 1 year I had walking pneumonia, and then like another year I had like this inner ear infection that was just really bad and I had to get like my ears drained. So like every year I would run myself into the ground and then my body and my immune system would just be like, okay, you're done now. And then I would just like hit the floor and I'd be out. And so I was not good at listening to my body. And I think that's how I learned the importance of valuing just my own health. And so that's when like I got to grad school, I was like, we need to do this differently this time. Like I'm learning. And so the health piece became a really important value of mine. And so now, like, yes, I totally get caught in that comparison cycle. And there are times where I've had to delete my Strava, like my whole profile and history completely, because I was like, it's not helping me anymore. Right. And I'm also learning, and I learned a lot this past year racing in the P12 field for the first time, is like the importance of setting process goals and like asking myself, who do I want to be as a racer and how do I want to show up today? And being able to set aside those numbers, because the numbers now, like they're so arbitrary, you know, and I also do a lot of virtual racing. And so you have to do like weigh-ins and stuff, which is really hard, I think, especially for a lot of women, including me, who have had like body image issues, eating issues, right? Yeah. And so I've had to learn how to like pivot and redirect my energy when needed. And I think stamina has also been one way for me to do that, is like a way to give back instead of getting caught up in like, how am I making a name for myself in cycling? It's not about my results.
Yeah. And I think for Pebbles, just to be clear, Erin's pretty dang fast, and does a dang good job at riding a bike. I kind of like slow walk that in the intro. Like,
yeah, Erin does bikes good.
Yeah, it does bikes well. And I think that's part of this, right? You put pressure on yourself to deliver at a certain space or deliver in a certain way. And especially, 2017, you go do a big thing, and we're 4 years later, things are very different than 4 years ago. And you've kind of built that, and you're racing the P12s, you're doing all these things. There are those expectations. And I think it's very interesting to hear from someone who works in a clinical space as well as a research space and all that, but, be able to break down the mechanisms that you're teaching other people to use and how you have to apply them to yourself. So like if someone who professionally does this, Pebbles, still has to figure out how to professionally sort themselves out, we're all the same in that way. Even if we have been trained to like figure out how brains work from that perspective, we all have to kind of manage that.
Yeah. Like a lot of people talk about finding your why. Like, what is your why? Like, why do you do it? Right. And I think that's great, but also sometimes we don't know. And so that's why I do so much work with values just in my clinical work in sports psychology, is like asking athletes, okay, let's think about the day that you know, like put your bike up for the last time, you know, like when you're done, what do you want people to say about you? Like, how do you want people to describe you? Like as a cyclist, as a racer, as a community member, like what words do you want them to use? And then asking yourself, okay, well, what does that look like? Right. And those are the things that I have to remind myself to focus on, because people are not going to remember how fast I was at Unbound. Right. Like they're not going to, with ultra, like no one cares and no one knows, you know, like no one knows what fast is except for the people who really, really focus on it. Right. And so thinking like, how do I want to show up? And so that is really helpful for me, because then it's like, okay, I got what I wanted today.
Well, and it's interesting thinking about some of the athletes that we've had on, whether they're at the precipice or of their kind of end of their career, or have just, you know, Jake Wells' first episode with us was right after his retirement, and we had Jeremy on before and then after his retirement. And the questions that you're asking are questions that only enter someone's brain generally when they start to see that light get pretty bright at the end of that tunnel.
Yep.
And usually by then it's hard to kind of construct what that legacy looks like. So
separate yourself from it.
Yeah. And it's I like that challenge of not even so much for athletes, but like Doug, I think you nailed it, is these aren't exclusive thoughts to somebody that's at the highest competitive level of any sport. It's as, you know, an operations manager, as a designer, as an accountant, whatever those things are. Like when you hang up your calculator or your mouse or whatever the thing is, like what do you want people to take away from the experience that they had with you, whether it's professionally or just personally? I think it's like that's something that you know, I think about these conversations specifically, and just being able to have those. I feel like selfishly, I feel super lucky that we're able to be a part of these every couple weeks and then be able to share them with people, because I think that this sort of stuff is what gives people additional depth and makes them challenge. Like, okay, well, I'm cruising through life. Am I crossing all my T's and dotting all my I's and making sure that I'm going to leave this, whatever it is, whether it's a job or my family or whatever it is, better than it was before me.
Right.
Yeah. So this brings me, John, thank you. Transition. Lovely. Just thank you for teeing this up, because I think this brings up a really interesting point. We are in a space where you started a new project, and I want to talk a little bit about how we got there, because I think that part of what John was just talking about process of evaluation of yourself and thinking about what mark you're leaving on things. And you saying, Erin, that results, great, fine, we can put them up on a Strava board, that can be deleted. Like, everyone go look across results, see how crappy I am, that's fine, right? Like, no one, like, that isn't the measure of a person. You were racing, you were doing this stuff, you're working with the team, and things in all of our world over the past 2 years have violently shifted for some people. For some people, they've been violently shifted since the moment their ancestors set foot on this continent. As we started to move through this, how were you, like, what was the genesis psychologically for you to say, hey, I don't like the certain circumstances around the things I'm doing right now. And I want to think about doing something different. I want you to talk about where you were before you talk about where you've gotten to, because I think it's important for people to understand the genesis and the seeds that were germinating in your space prior to the start of Stamina and how things kind of got to that point.
Yeah. So it all goes back to that same concept of that cognitive dissonance, right? So like there's this like friction between my behaviors and what I know to be true. Like those two things are not complementing each other. They're not getting along. They're opposing each other. And so we saw that in the Twin Cities. Like I had, unfortunately, a front row view, right?
Yes.
And so it rocked us to the core. And I also live north Minneapolis. And so I was not affected in the same way that people in South Minneapolis were affected. Like it wasn't like my neighborhood that I grew up in or that I lived in. And it was a big wake up call for all of us. And so when that happened and all of these conversations started about, police brutality and health disparities, especially racial disparities with respect to police and arrests. And that's when bikes came into the conversation, because I've always valued diversity and inclusion, and like the work is never done. And I thought that I was like good, right? Like I volunteer, like I read, I listen to these podcasts, like
I work in
check
mental
the
I
health,
work in psychology,
right?
I publish research on microaggressions, right? Like I'm doing things, right? And when we saw police bikes being used as shields and impact weapons, that was a new slap in the face, right? And so for me, as going to that all women's college, I learned like the personal is political. Like you cannot separate your personal life from the politics and the systems and the rest of the world. Like they're going to interact. And so that was one of those moments where I was like, wow, I'm riding a bike on a team by a company that is unintentionally complicit in this system of police brutality and bikes being used as weapons and as shields, even though they say that that's not the intended use. This is how they're being used, which fun fact, that is the intended use. When you can go down the rabbit holes of the training manuals,
there's training.
You will find it.
And
right?
those bikes are specifically engineered differently than the regular FX series bikes.
The hubs are designed to be silent so that it's easier to sneak up on people, basically, right? Like they're designed to hold the bikes by the stem and the seat post so that you can use them as shields. So that was in my face and I couldn't look away. And as someone who values diversity and inclusion, I was like, either I set aside this value and convince myself that I'm good enough, right? Like I've done my part. This doesn't affect me. It doesn't really mean if I stay on this team, I continue to ride these bikes, it's not going to reflect me as a person. It'll be fine, right? So I could talk my way out of it, or I could change my behavior.
What does it feel like to have to do that analysis? Like you're a person who's already thinking about that. What does it feel like to have to do that analysis of yourself?
Mm-hmm. It was, I think I knew before I knew before I thought through it. Like I just had the feeling like this is going to happen. I think my spouse also knew well beforehand, when are you just going to do your own thing? Because I always had opinions about how things should be done differently. Back to Erin, no, I do it. Right. Yeah. So I think my spouse also knew that it was going to be a thing. And this was that catalyst. Right. And so, but that process was super hard. And And it did not go as planned. Like, you know, it was in it and everything was moving so fast. And like, next thing I know, I'm on the phone with the CFO, and it was not a very smooth conversation. I'm sure he would say the same thing. And then like things kept changing, right? And then like just the conversations, I sent follow-up conversations. I had interacted with them in the past about other concerns that I had experienced like at races regarding microaggressions and like just equality, and like, hey, this went down, not very cool. And those conversations like also were not super smooth. So, you know, like there was some history and some more context there. And so then when this happened, I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't care how big the discount is on the bike. Like, I can't keep riding these bikes. And so through therapy, like that, there was a session that was just really, really important that week. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. And then the other thing that I thought about is like, okay, I could do this two ways. I can like keep a low profile, and really not say anything and just say like, I'm going to step down. Like, things are hard right now. I can't focus on bikes. We're in a pandemic. Or I could share my story. And what I've learned through Brene Brown, is the importance of just owning your story and being vulnerable and being authentic. Right. And so I was like, if I'm going to use my privilege and my platform for anything, I need to be true to my story and what's actually happening here. So I shared it on social media. And it like went pretty, I don't know, viral in my world. I don't know what counts as viral.
No one does. Yeah.
Yeah. So it blew up. And then like, and then like, that was it. I was like, I'm selling my bikes. Who wants them? They were sold immediately, which was also pretty interesting. Because the people knew, like, they knew why I left the team. Like, they're
I am selling this thing I do not wish to be attached anymore to. Yeah.
Like, how much are you selling your mountain bike for? Like, oh, I'll take your fat bike. Like, okay. Like that, you know, like you do you and I'll do me. And so it was just like, it rocked my world. It was really hard. I totally would have done some things differently. Like, it was not a smooth process, but I also know that it was really raw and authentic, and I don't regret the decision.
Well, and Doug and I were talking about this a little bit before you joined us tonight, of, you know, thinking through some of the folks that we've had on the show that have lived this with you, and choosing both sides of the equation, and the algebra for everyone. It seems like the math is the same, but everybody's algebra is completely different. And it's like everyone had to navigate it in their own way based on where they felt like what they could actually leverage or get away with. And
there wasn't a playbook, to be clear.
Everyone is shooting blind. And I think the most important piece about what you said is at least that I pull out, is no one would have thought twice if you would have just posted, you know, I'm taking a step back. We're in a global pandemic. I'm focusing on myself. I'm focusing on my family and keeping everyone well and safe.
Yeah.
No one would have questioned that. But again, it's that, like, who am I? What do I want? What do I want my draft behind me to be?
Right.
So I'm curious, when you got to a point where it was 51-49, we're dropping this.
Yep.
Was it a release for you? Like, was it a, like, oh my God, I'm on the stressful highway, I'm stuck in rush hour traffic. Oh, there's the off ramp. I can get off and I can just like let my shoulders down.
Even if the off ramp is like not paved, there's like some dudes in orange cones, right? You're like, and
it's just swerve. A cliff.
There's like a goat like crossing, and you're like, what's going on? Right? Like, even if it's that sort of situation, and
just
it's
not
a
sheep. No sheep no sheep on the off ramp.
No sheep on the off ramp.
So it was like that.
Just like that.
Just like that. It sucked. Like, I got a lot of nasty text messages. People stopped talking to me. I got harassed on social media. People had a lot to say.
So Was that stuff, looking back on it now, is that stuff cult of personality, or is it somebody, are these people reacting to you as though they felt they were slighted and that your decision for yourself somehow was against them in some, like it was about them?
I think the latter. And I think it was like this sense of either like, like I think it created, I don't know for sure. My guess is it created like defensiveness in them because they may ride the same bikes and they're like, I'm not a bad person. I'm not doing this wrong. She's the bad one. Like, and of course they probably wouldn't verbalize it that way, but that's like how it came out, is that like their way to kind of justify the tension, right? Like she like as in me, like she did this in a really inappropriate way, right? Like there are better ways. And I think it's easier to criticize someone to take those feelings off of yourself. So that was a part of it. I think the other camp of critics were frankly people who are like so woke that they were criticizing me for like just waking up for the first time and realizing that this was an issue, and then like trying to coast off of the work of other people, which is like a conversation. So
No, I mean,
well, that goes back to, what was it? Nuns bowling. That's that conversation about like
Nuns bowling.
That there needs to be ownership on one side of the equation of trying to do better, but there needs to be ownership on the other side of the equation of seeing people trying to do better, but also helping them along the way and pointing out when they mess up.
That's a tough one, right? Like no one like.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yes, welcome to John's TED Talk, which is like
15-second TED Talk.
That's quick. He walks out, drops the mic, like TED Talk, TEDx. I'm out. TEDx
graphics.
but it is interesting how this process is something that a number of people have navigated, but there was no playbook. There's no way that someone could say, hey, this is how you move through your own emotional attachment to these things, the community's response to you doing these things on all sides and in all potential ways. And you're going to stub your toe a bunch. Yeah. It's not like it's going to happen. And I think we're all kind of going through this process. And I mean, I know as a privileged white person, right? I'm constantly going through this process. I'm constantly walking into walls and slamming my foot in the door and making mistakes, right? As diverse as I think I am, I like have no concept of other people's space struggles, the things they've been through. I'm going to screw up constantly. But I think, you said something that was really important in our conversation in the green room, which is the work is never done.
Right.
We're always trying to evolve. We're always trying to become better people. We're always trying to do more work to do this. And you took an action at that time that was like, this is the stand I'm taking. This is the bumpy off ramp I'm going to use. And I'm going to choose to do something different. I'm going to choose to not participate in this system that I feel is holding up something that I can't approve of. I'm going to make a decision. And, John and I have made decisions in our life to do much the same thing, although not with the fanfare that you have, because we're far less important and no one gave us anything.
But on a smaller scale, and I know I've said this on the podcast before, I get the same reaction, but on a smaller scale when I tell people that I don't go to Chick-fil-A.
Sure.
For all of the kind of same framed reasons,
same framed ideas.
That they're like, they take it as somehow it's I'm upset at them, and it's like, no, I just don't want to give my money to this place that doesn't give a shit about a large faction of our country.
And things that I believe in, right?
Yeah, this is mine. It has nothing to do with you. This is me owning something that I feel like I can do.
Right. Yeah.
So when you've done this thing, right? You've made these decisions. You said earlier your spouse was like, "Oh God, here we fucking go." Like, it's just the next step. It's like Erin's gonna have to do a thing and go.
Here she goes again.
Yeah, right. So
put on my helmet.
Right. Strap in. Was the idea of building something happening in concert at that time, or was it just like, I'm getting out of here and then I'm going to figure out what to do? Where did that math occur?
Yeah. So someone commented on one of my friend's dads, who's lovely. And we've had a lot of like good and tense conversations about like social justice stuff, because like different generation, different, wiring and programming. And
I go through with my parents, trust me.
yeah. So he commented on my like thing where I was like, I'm selling my bikes. He's like, if you really want to make a difference, you should use that money and buy bikes for people who need them. And I was like, okay. And like, I'm not going to just like buy some new road bikes for people and then like throw them into a sport that's not inclusive. Like, I'm not going to like pity people and be like, here, have a bike. Like you should race with it. Like
get set up for failure.
Yeah. Like it doesn't like, I know the sport. I've done research for work on like what affects, like what are the factors that increase and decrease participation in competitive cycling. Like I'm the microaggressions, right? Like I know this. And so I'm like, I can't just buy like, and that's like a very performative activity where I'm like, oh, look at this great thing that I did. Right. So I was like, if I'm a part of the problem right now because I'm a part of this broken system. Right. And so either I can like set the system on fire and like, burn the bridge and walk away.
It's fun. Yeah. Not like fires are cool. They're warm. Yeah. They look cool. I hear it.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I created enough of a fire for now. Like, let's try to be more solutions focused. And so and I was like, well, I need a team. And then I talked with like one of my best friends and like other people offered me slots on theirs. And I was like, and just talking to them, I was like, I want to be a part of like something bigger. Right. And so it was through those conversations of me like processing the departure that led to like, I think I just need to do this thing. Because all the conversations kept coming back to like, I kind of want to do this. Right. And so then people would ask like, well, how are you going to find people? How are you going to get bikes? Like all of these like hows. And I was like, I'm going to figure it out. Like, we're just going to do it. Right. And so then I just started conversations and talking to people in my network, like, hey, you bike, or hey, like, I know that you're just a super active person. And like, you have a stressful job. Like, would you be interested in starting this thing with me? And we got a lot of yeses. And like, that's what started. We all had a Zoom meeting in like the first week of July about like, this is what a team kind of does. I was the only one who had raced, and they all trusted me with this journey and adventure. We got used bikes from Chicago, North Carolina, New York, Missouri, like mailed to us, sent to us, like old school, like 3x Motobacane, like so good. Right. And we were very much like a run what you brung team. We got like off like jerseys that were a misprint in the wrong color from a nonprofit organization that they were doing like a big cycling fundraiser, and they just like sent us all their jerseys. And so then we just started like scrapping things together. And then I was just like running around the Twin Cities, picking stuff up. And then like we slowly built things from there.
Well, it's funny, and you mentioned in the green room earlier, like a lot of this is talking about things in hindsight now, and thinking back to, you're talking about middle school and high school and being a rebel, and talking about just the way that you talked about yourself through this whole kind of story arc. At this point, when you come to this major decision point, it's like, well, duh, she's not going to go ride for anybody else, because
right?
Like, she's got to work, but like she has to work for herself, because
like how has she lasted this long?
Who's going to manage that?
Yeah.
Like just the way that you built that whole storyline up, it's like it just makes like it makes all of that make sense. But I think that speaks so much to where your headspace is right now, in terms of feeling like you are owning your own direction, owning your own carving out what your niche is and what you want to leave behind. And again, like where do you derive joy, and what do you want to leave behind, but also what do you want to get out of this while you're doing it, rather than waiting until it's done and then being like, oh, well, I guess I could be an announcer because I don't know what else to do. So I'll do this.
Yeah.
But like, I don't have any idea what people are going to say about me when I'm gone.
I was like, I don't want to like walk away with my tail between my legs. Like, that's not what this is about. Right. Like it's like, keep the conversation going. Let's keep talking about it. And
and in that moment, when you have that heat, when you have that, whatever version of virality, like that post gets, like when you have that momentum and you have that white heat, whether it's good or bad, like it's no different than what professional wrestlers say or what like NASCAR drivers say. They're like, I don't care if people cheer or boo me. If they're making noise, I'm making some sort of impact on them because I've given them some sort of emotional response, good or bad, which means that I'm leaving a dent in them.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Like we often talk about like we're making waves, right? And like not everyone wants them. But that means that we're getting the word out. And I think that's one thing that I've learned just with like advocacy and DEI work is like the more I stick my neck out, the more I'm going to be criticized. And part of that is because I'm human and I will make legit mistakes along the way. And I deserve to be called in and sometimes called out. Right. And so it's a part of that work. And I think a lot of people are just too afraid to like start. Like a lot of people want to help and they want to be good people. And I think we have to remember that like day-to-day DEI work does not determine how good you are like as a person. Like you can be a good person and still screw up. Like if you make a mistake with DEI stuff, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person, right? And so I think a lot of people are afraid to take some of those steps because they don't want to screw up and they don't want to create hard feelings. Like, and you're not going to learn unless you do it, right? Like, so like used an analogy of like, you can't just like read a book about like rock climbing and then just like know how to be a rock climber. Like
I'm working on this project over here. We're gonna go send this thing. I've learning all this rock climbing slang the past day. I was like, Ellen said something. I was like, what is that? She's like, oh, it's rock climbing slang. I was like, I don't even understand that crap.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can't just figure it out because you read a book. You got to do the work.
You got to do it.
Yeah. It's that, whether it's nothing ventured, nothing gained, or nothing changes if nothing changes. But like the fact that you're failing means that you're trying. Like it's no different than you as a bike racer. Like you lose a lot more races than you win.
Yep.
Unless you're Legion, I guess. But that's whatever.
Yeah.
A different ball game altogether. But like the idea of and again, we're like three white people sitting at the table here who like have lived completely different experiences than a lot of people that we're trying to figure out how to listen to and be a part of. But you gotta try and you gotta go fail. And as I said in my TED talk, the people that help bring you back in when you fail are just as important as you putting yourself out there. So
absolutely,
the water needs to be warm enough for people to be able to feel comfortable to get in, but people also got to get in.
Yeah. And you've got to like, I think that the number one thing is like, you've got to be willing to listen and learn. Like when people give you feedback, we can't get defensive and start to justify and be like, oh, well, I didn't mean it that way. Or like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Or like, no, that was taken out of context, right? Like it's very common for us to it's just human nature for us to get defensive, right? And people often talk about like white tears. Like there's different acronyms. There's one that's well known in domestic violence circles called DARVO, where it's deny, like I didn't say that, or I didn't mean it that way. And then attack, like how dare you accuse me of blah, 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 blah. And then reverse victim and offender. And so then people will be like, I am so upset that you would say something like that about me. Like why would you think that I'm like that? And then the next thing you know, the recipient is the one taking care of the person who like screwed up in the place.
Classic gaslighting.
That sounds like something we just lived through for like the last 4 years. That's weird.
Right.
Weird.
And you've gotta like check yourself with that. And that's the part that's hard, because that's where people start to feel lots of guilt and shame. And like humans hate shame. Like we hate feeling ashamed because we think that that means that we're a bad person. Like, no, you screwed up and it sucks and it feels really gross. So like sit with that.
Yeah.
And then learn and then do better. Right. And
so you don't have to feel that again.
Right. Exactly.
You use that as fuel to be like, I don't want to feel that ever again.
But that's the value of that, right? That's the value of the ownership of mistakes, right? The value of the ownership of saying, I don't want to be on this team doing this thing, right? Like I don't want to be associated with that. I must change this. I'm going to take all of this stuff and I'm going to move it into something different.
Yeah.
And I think it gives you the ability to then transition into a new space and say, okay, I've learned all these lessons and had all these challenges and I've made all these mistakes. What do I want to do different? And I think that's what's been really cool to see with what you've been doing with your entire crew at Stamina. Cause it's not you, it's you, but it's your whole like family that you've built and all of the things that you do. Like, kudos. First off, if you're not following Stamina, you need to go follow them on Instagram, because if you just want to get someone into cycling, like they have a whole video all about how to signal. Like, crap, that's not a thing that anyone other than the League of American Bicyclists is doing. And they're putting it out in a piece of paper that you have to like get
two people read.
Right. That like, you've got to get a trained instructor to teach you. Y'all are doing so much in that space. Why do you think that your mission is bigger than just having a team that is diverse and is doing this stuff? Why do you think that your mission has become this broader thing?
I think one of the things is because we know the pillars of our team are based off of the research that shows like what pushes people out or prevents people from coming in to cycling, into competitive cycling specifically.
It's almost like you studied that.
Yeah, it's almost like I studied that, right? So this is where like all of those cool things come together. So one of them is accessibility. And it's not just money and bikes, because first of all, who's going to spend like $1,500 on an entry-level road bike if they don't yet know if they're going to actually like the sport? Like, no, there are 100%. Other they could spend that money on. So accessibility of just like supplies and equipment, but also knowledge. Like, who the hell knows how to read a USAC race flyer? Like, who knows what category you're in? Like,
definitely
probably
not
even
the
people writing it.
Yeah, not the officials.
Right.
So like, there are so many, like, it's just not an accessible sport, and so people don't know how to get in. So the teams, one of the pillars is accessibility. And so that's one of the reasons we work really hard to make cycling and racing accessible, and like being more just authentic with the material we create, and being like, hey, here's like me falling over, and here's how to use hand signals, and like, here's how training has been. Like a year ago, I couldn't mount and dismount a bike for a cross, and like now look at me, right? So that has been really important with that accessibility, because then people are like, oh, maybe I do see myself as being able to try this. And then the second pillar is mentorship. Like, if you don't have a mentor who's like there to kind of like help you and talk through like text messages before your first race of like, what should I wear? What time should I show up? Like, where do I go? What is my number on the right way? Like, what the hell is this thing around my ankle? Right? Like, you need a mentor to like walk you through those things and just like provide that emotional support to be like, you've got this, right? Like, you're going to be great.
John did it for me through my first cross season. Did a great job. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Like, what the hell do I do for tire pressure? Like, is 100 okay? Like, let's take a look
for cross.
Like,
go real fast.
Yeah. So,
right into a wall. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the second one, is the mentorship. And then the third one is community. Is like, if you go out to a race and you don't see yourself like captured, if you don't see anyone that looks like you don't see yourself as a part of that community.
Right.
And so that's the other goal with the team, is like to help people feel that sense of community. And so we have a lot of people who reach out to us from other states and cities, and they're like, we want to join you. Like, are you going to start, like, do you take other like applicants from other cities are like, are you going to start a chapter somewhere else? And our goal is like, no, we want to inspire people to do the same thing we did, because we started with like very little knowledge. One of us raced. None of us had ever managed a team before. None of us had ever secured sponsorships before. Like we taught ourselves everything. And you can too. And so our goal is to like, if we can get more people to light that fire inside of them, then rally and support each other, like create your own thing, like do it. They 40, I think they call it Fem 40 in Madison is a new one that just popped up. And like, there's a lot of like, create a team. Like it takes a shit ton of work, but it's not that hard, right? And so that's the goal, is to create this broader community, is like, reach out to us, ask us questions, we'll support you, we'll help you with introductions. Like we wouldn't be where we are as a team without the community of people that helped us get to where we are. So,
all right. So, scientist, you said all along, all through this conversation, you love waypoints, you love checkpoints, you love markers. What markers are we dealing with each pillar here? Like, have you put actual stakes in the ground of whether it's specific measurables, or because we're talking about it in business perspective, we got some soft goals right now, but like what are we talking about in terms of how are you wrapping your head around destination points of, okay, yes, that's the next checkpoint, and then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here.
The biggest checkpoints for us have been launching community programming. So we created and secured grants from New Belgium and QBP, in addition to the money that we got from just like crowdsourcing and fundraising last year, to launch 2 community programs to basically get more FTWs, like femme, trans women, non-binary folks racing. And so we did we call it the starting line program, and think of like a couch to 5K program for crits. And so we provided a 6-week training plan, like Zoom workshops with a coach. So they had a coach for 6 weeks, and then we paid her. Some of our sponsors chipped in with some cool gear and like swag. And then we like mentored them for their first race. So in our community, the officials will allow us to like ride alongside for novice riders as mentors. And so then like me or my teammates would ride alongside the starting line participants and mentor them for their first race, being like, okay, the pack is coming up behind you, so let's move to the outside, like this way, move to the right and slow down just a little bit so they can pass before the corner, right? So then we would mentor them through that piece. So we got 12 people through last year. Wow. Not all of them raced. So the goal is to increase that number next year. And then the other program we did was called Ride Bright, which is a program specifically for BIPOC folks in the community. They do not need to be racers. And it's like, so in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and likely in other states, there are laws about visibility in bicycles. You're supposed to ride with lights. And not all people know that. And we also know that Black and brown folks are more likely to be pulled over and policed if they don't have the lights. And so we also know there are issues with like, just like bike theft. And we know that there are issues with like not wearing helmets. So we created this Ride Bright program where we provide free lights, locks, and helmets, in addition to a free bike maintenance class. So they'll take a class at a local bike co-op. And then we pay for all of it. And we did that for like, not everyone did all of those things, but we had a total of like 70 BIPOC folks in the community.
Whoa.
Yeah, super cool.
That's excellent.
So those are kind of like our benchmarks, is like, now we've got the numbers to see how many people we served and how much money we spent this year. So then next year is like, okay, so like, yeah, we're a racing team, but like, and yeah, we spend a lot of like time and energy training and racing. But the goal is so much bigger than that. And then we host like bi-weekly community rides for FTWs. And often a lot of them, it's like their first one. And so
Awesome.
Them the rules of the road and go on adventures, have fun. So yeah, so those are the benchmarks, is basically like, how can we make an like footprint in the community and start to make a larger difference.
I love that it's structured as in, hey, like I built the thing because I like racing bikes, but I understand what the bike does for people. And I understand it's germane to so many others because of what it is. And we're going to serve all these different pieces of this.
Yeah.
It is helpful to see y'all build a blueprint. I love what you said before. Like, hey, I don't want to start other chapters. I want you to like look at what we've done and make it work for your location. Exactly. I think if anything, like that's what the gravel lot's about, is like, hey, look at these people over here doing a thing. You should probably do that thing where you are if it fits where you are.
Yeah.
We want to make, right? This is all about what we're about, is shining a light on people who are doing awesome stuff in their communities, awesome stuff in the bike space, and say, hey, how can you bring this to your space and make it work for you? Yep. So all of y'all reach out and have this conversation with Erin and all the folks at Stamina. But that brings me to the next question, which is, what all do you need? Like, what do y'all need? I know you've got a big project that launches when this thing goes live, like as a podcast, but like we're on the front side of it for anybody watching the live stream right now.
Yeah. So we have a huge fundraiser. So like last year we were able to like crowdsource and fundraise enough money because we've got the 501c3 status, which is great because it allows us to apply for grants, and then all donations are also tax deductible. So that's really cool. But so we were able to fundraise, just like crowdsource, like, hey, friends, family, community members, can you please pitch in and like allow us to build this thing, right? And we know that we can't do that every year. So what we did this year is we've got 4-ish ways for people to support and get involved. The first one is we're doing a virtual silent auction, November 8th to 13th. And we'll be posting all of the links. You won't be able to get away from it on Instagram. And excellent. Some amazing brands chipped in, super, super generous. And we've got like donations, some of them up to like $500 or more in just retail and merchandise value. Osprey Packs threw us like 6 bags, Chrome Industries. We got Scratch, we got Goo. Trainer Road gave us 5 annual licenses. Wow. Like we got Machines for Freedom, like Wolf Tooth, they all came together to support us. Really cool stuff. And our goal was basically for people to look at the lists and the auction and be like, holy shit, how did they get all of this? And we did. I'm not going to tell you how many emails I've sent over the past 2 months, but like
your inbox is basically on fire.
Yeah. But the cool thing about that is if you're looking for brands to support, they're all going to be in one place.
Right.
Yeah. Good to go.
Brands that are doing it right, putting their money where their mouth is.
So like for the people who have struggled to get into Unbound or Rooted Vermont or The Last Best Ride, we have race registrations for those races. So if you want to buy a race registration, it's all yours. Like you don't have to go through the lottery. You don't have to play the game and hope that the 5th time you enter the lottery, you're going to get it. Because I know it's harder for the white men to get some of these slots because there are more of you.
Yeah. And I have zero desire to do any of those. So everyone can cut me out of that. But yes.
And to be fair, Lord knows they're not used to not getting what they want.
Yeah. So here's your opportunity.
Get what you want, but help people who don't necessarily get that.
That's a double right there.
So that's going to be super cool. So that's the first thing.
What a brilliant turn of play. I appreciate it. It's so good.
Second thing we're doing is a virtual raffle. So we got 4 huge raffle prizes. It's going to be $10 a ticket. And then we're going to you can do like virtual is fine. We'll be putting it up on our website in the store. So you just buy as many raffle tickets as you want for the item that you want. And then we're going to raffle them off on November 15th at 7:30 p.m. Central. And we'll put it on Instagram Live. It's going to be at a happy hour. And the raffle prizes are Industry 9 wheel set with level customization. So if you want to get custom rainbow spokes, like, go for it.
I just want blue and pink. That's all mine. Just all blue and pink. I'm good for it.
You can select the color of your hub, right? Like it's a was it ARTRA? I can't remember the model name. It's their
AR25 TRA.
That's the one.
I got you.
Yeah, thank you. So we got that. Amanda Batty gave us a bike worth $4,200.
Is that a sparkle fucker?
Yeah, it's a sparkle fucker, beep motherfucker bike.
Yeah.
Yep. It's an all city frame, a size 55 that runs large. So it's more of like a 57. And as she always does, like there's some really awesome components on it. Really nice wheel set.
That thing's legit as hell.
Mm-hmm.
All
shout out. We got that. We got a Ceres Smart Trainer in H3 that we're going to raffle off. And then we got the last thing is a like resort weekend getaway at Lake Darling Resort in Western Minnesota with like a condo on the lake that fits up to people. And if there's a hot tub, which is all I care about. So
Erin's like, I'm going to stuff the box on this one. I'm spending all my ill-gotten gains right on this. Yeah.
So then the third thing is that it's so like sad. I don't know if you guys have heard, we lost a really important member of the cycling community last week.
Yeah.
Ade was a designer and cycling member in Chicago. And like big name designer, really, really ridiculously talented, and decided to give racing a shot just this past year. And Ade reached out to Stamina and volunteered to create some logos and designs for us to use on merchandise. And unfortunately, he was hit by a car in an intersection and died on Friday. So like 3 days ago, as of this recording.
Yeah.
So he won't be able to see those designs come to life, which also makes them that much more meaningful because we're all able to really like carry on the name. And one of the logos is specific to diversify cycling. And he was a big supporter and advocate of that. And the team he joined, like one of the questions was like, what are your plans to add more diversity to this team? Right. So he really lived and breathed it and was just an amazing guy. And so the third way to support us is to get some merchandise with Ade's designs. And then the fourth is the happy hour on November 15th. So we're basically like on brand for Erin, like pulling out all the stops. So lots of ways to support us. And then aside from that, like most of that money goes toward like the community programming. And then it'll help support like race entry fees for our riders who want to be able to race more often. And then helping with like gear, like we had a lot of bikes that were donated, but they have not been tuned up in a while. So it'll help us get them up to speed so they can hit the road, things like that. So those are the biggest ways to support the team.
That's excellent.
So, boy, definitely to me, this is part one of what I hope is many continuing conversations with you. Cause yes. I think everything you're doing is it, just like Doug said a couple minutes ago, is this is why this show selfishly is so important to both of us, because we can't do all of these things and it would be insane to try, but
because we're not Erin, like
if we can put amazing people in positions to just tell their story and tell what they're doing, you don't need to sell stamina to anybody. You don't need to sell why donating to something like this makes sense. So for everyone listening, Erin, you know what's coming after the sponsor read-offs. But one question that I want to touch on before we kind of do our chores is for the folks that are listening to this that are thinking, self-selecting themselves out of this sort of empowerment move that you took of, I'm gonna define my own destiny, and I'm gonna try and build this world into what I want it to be in the way that I want it done.
Right.
What do you say to folks when they come to you and say, I don't know where to start, I don't know how to do what you're doing? Like looking at it as a very esoteric perspective and saying, I can't do that. What do you like? How do you approach those conversations with folks?
Yeah, I think the best starting point is to have more conversations with people who are different from you and to listen to their stories. Because when we start to listen to the experiences of people who aren't white, who aren't able-bodied, who aren't lean, like they they deal with so much, especially in cycling. And we're not going to be able to make any changes. Like it's like, we can't fix the system if we don't know what's happening to people who aren't like us. Right. So like, you've got to listen first. I'd say that's always the first starting point. And then like, you don't have to save the day right away. Like do the little things, like check in on people, you know, be nice to people, reach out to them at races. If there's someone standing around and you don't recognize them, like go introduce yourself. Make it a point to leave spaces on your team rosters for beginners. Like most of the, almost actually all but me have like never had the opportunity to be on a team. And that's for a lot of different reasons, some of which are cultural. Like as girls, they were not allowed to ride, let alone race bikes when they were younger. We have a lot of immigrants on our team. We've got a lot of non-binary folks we don't have a lot. We've got a couple non-binary folks who like, I don't know what field I should be in. Like, how do I navigate this? So like, if you want to make a difference, make room for people. I think that's the other thing. And if you don't have diversity on your team, like be willing to look at why not? Like, what are your relationships and networks like within your community? Like who's in your network and how can you expand that and deepen it to get to know other people? So
that goes back to what you were saying earlier about sometimes you got to sit in the muck and be okay sitting in it. Cause that last topic specifically, I think is one that most people are going to feel like, oh boy.
But it's achievable.
That's me. Right. But it's not that it's not
insurmountable.
Correct. But
it doesn't mean you're a bad person, right?
Correct.
I think there's this,
But I think that's the arrow that's going to hit a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm.
Much more so than the first two that you listed off.
Yeah.
Because when you look around, you look to your left and you look to your right, and I look at my left and right on this conversation virtually, right? Like there's something that ties us in common, and that's understandable. And we can see that. And so that's part of our analysis. And it has to be, as we look at our community and as we think about how we want to build a better community for other people, and we want to make a more inclusive space. Yeah. If you can start at that, like little pinpoint, then I think we can get to a better spot. And it doesn't take moving the entire earth, just move a little bit of it. So
it's like all these really, really little things. And it's just being willing to like take a look and to learn and expand your feed on Instagram. Like you'll learn a lot. And just like little things, like if you're advertising a ladies ride, like maybe not everyone wants to be a lady. Like who are you unintentionally excluding from that ride by naming it that, right? Or like thinking about your sizing for merch. Like if it's not inclusive, if not all bodies can fit in those sizes, like who are you unintentionally excluding, right? There's just so many things. If you're a pay to play team where you need a road bike and you have to pay $300 for a kit, and then you pay $60 for the team membership or whatever, again, who are you unintentionally excluding? So it's like trying to take a look at those things and being like, okay, well, what are the like low hanging fruit that we can start to adjust and then go from there.
It's excellent. It's excellent. This has been fantastic. Oh, so much. And there's so much more to unpack that we have so many, yes, we have many more episodes in this trio here. We can do so much more, and we're stoked to see where you're headed. So you know that we're going to ask you the final question, and it's coming, but we're going to pay the bills first because these people allow us to be able to bring all this stuff to you. So hang with us, Erin.
Yeah, I think kudos. So before Pebbles, I think it's important to note here that Erin had 8 straight hours of screen time today before joining us, and she still was able to deliver for an hour and 40 minutes, and it was a great episode. So
thank you.
Kudos for that stamina.
Pro level. Also, all of you need to get on that pro level if you are not there right now. So Pebbles, that's something else you can work on, Pebbles. So as we wrap it up today, we want to thank all of you for being here and listening with us, engaging with us, making TGL so successful. We would not be able to bring this show to you if it was not all for you. You are amazing, and and we love each and every one of you. You are literally part of our family. You have been everything for us for the past 4 years. Keep us going all the time, and we are so thankful for everything that you do. So in addition to you supporting the show, we encourage you to go and slide on over to our partners who help us bring this to you and allow us to share TGL with the world. We hope that you can show them a little bit of love because they show us love. Thus, we can show you love. It's like a whole
circle of life.
Yeah, it's a circle of life.
Circle
yeah,
of
it's like that.
internet,
Yeah,
or
it's that.
circle
Yeah,
of
it's something like that.
marketing, whatever.
Marketing, whatever.
Multi-level marketing.
This is not a MLMC. You do not need to tell two friends and then get them to tell two friends.
But I
But you
watched
could.
what was that? The Lula Rich. I watched that. I watched that documentary last weekend on.
So now we would like to announce to you that we're going to be selling leggings.
Yeah, TGL leggings.
TGL leggings. We're not selling leggings.
Prints. Yeah. No. Just tell two friends, and the buy-in's only $7,000. That's fine.
But I think if you would like to get some custom leggings for your team, you could probably slide on over to Be Free Ride Bikes Apparel, and they could sort you out. They'll do fully customized kit, maybe leggings. I don't know.
They do. Yeah. Well,
like,
I mean, yeah, they do.
Tights.
Yeah, they're tights.
Well,
tights are leggings. It's the same thing.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
But they can get it fully customized for you, for your team, to get you outfitted for the following season. If you're in the winter and you're doing winter riding, that's great. You need some stuff from them, they can sort that out. Or if you're looking to roll into next year and building your crew out, you can get them sorted out. So get in touch with bfrbcycling.com and find out how they can help you and your team get yourself prepared for the upcoming seasons.
And if you need something to help you get through your 8 hours of screen time during the day, you should look no further than Grimport Brothers Coffee. Dan and everybody within that company is truly the shining example of putting their money where their mouth is. Follow the link in our show notes and head to grimportbrothers.com right now and get your hands on premium hand-roasted coffee. It supports amazing causes, both in cycling but also in our world. It is everything that we've just been talking about. Jessica's roast, we just sent 2 pounds of it over to our great friend in England. We hope that you are enjoying your Jessica's roast. But look through their website, find the right beans for you, find the right roast for you, but also find the right cause for you, and knowing that a couple bucks from every single pound of coffee is going to go to something that you actually care about. And if you get the subscription service, you will get a free bag of coffee.
And to continue the theme of giving back, also, I would like to shout out our amazing friends at Hand Up Gloves, who have been doing Gloves for Good all year this year, where they're giving back to causes that are near and dear to their hearts, whether it's trails, whether it's community organizations, whether it's folks in the Native American community who are doing positive things, getting people on bikes. They are doing the work that we all care about. And you know what? They make amazing apparel and gloves in a range of designs that allow you to express yourself. So go click the link in our show notes and use the code Pebble $sign at checkout to save yourself 10% off everything in their store. I need to go there and order myself a new like shell jacket. Not that I need more jackets, because I'm like the jacket king of Cincinnati, but I'm definitely going to need to get a new jacket. So
you always need a new jacket. It's like always, seasonal for you. It's for more fashion, I think, than it is need.
It's definitely fashion.
Yeah.
I am into fashion.
All right. So I said it in the intro. Doug just said it. We absolutely love hearing from you guys, and I will reiterate everything that he's just said. You guys have been the lifeblood of this show for the last 4 years. As we come up on 200 episodes, it is not lost on us that making this thing, yes, we love making it, but the response that we get from you guys, the stories that we are selfish enough to be able to be a part of and be able to ask further questions around are life-changing. They change our perspective each and every week, and hopefully you guys are getting that as well, which I assume you are because you keep tuning back in. So tell your friends, tell them to subscribe to the Gravelot on all the social feeds, wherever they want to get their podcast from. They're going to be coming out bi-weekly. Head to thegravelot.com, stay in touch, stay up to date on our podcast, on Girls Moving Mountains, on anything going on with Pink, Blue, White, Our Beeline articles are going to tune back up here as Pete gets his life hopefully sorted back out here. And now that he's out from wife getting master's degree and he's able to go back into the writing realm. But everything that we are trying to bring you is it's all from the same perspective of trying to give people the opportunity to tell their story and broaden your experience base. So tune in, live shows every other Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. We'll be on YouTube. Find us on Twitter. Find us on Facebook, Streamlabs. Engage with us. Call the voicemail. Send us a text message. Just get on the contact form on the website. Just be involved with this because that's what keeps us pointed in the right direction because we want to go where you guys want us to go.
Absolutely. And our massive thanks to Waterboy for intro and outro music. New album dropped. So excellent stuff from him. Many thanks to him for all the jams. Go check him out on all the social platforms or just click the link in the show notes. That's super, super easy. So Erin, the final question. I do see a tail wagging, which is excellent. That is good. We'll have to make sure. Time. Yes, special guest.
I know he's like it's a glass door, and so he figured out if he starts barking at me that he gets attention. And
through the glass door.
Yeah, through the glass door, he'll just stare at me and bark. And so, this is what he's learned over the course of the pandemic. And so I saw him getting ready to bark, and I was like, I need to open this door before he starts barking on this podcast.
Excellent. We're always here for animals. We'll make sure on Mondays we feature animals, so we'll get those photos out there.
Right.
Our final question for you. What do you want the Pebbles, our fine listeners, to take home with them from our wide-ranging conversation tonight?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like, don't be afraid to step in and roll up your sleeves and start the work. Like, it's going to be messy. Embrace the messiness, embrace the awkwardness. Like, there's no one right way to do diversity and inclusion, right? And so by remaining humble and like willing to like keep learning and growing and doing it, that's how we're going to make progress. Not by this like paralysis by analysis where we just want to do things the right way and we don't want to screw up because we want to be good people, which like, yes to all of those things. And like, it's going to be messy. So enjoy the ride.
I like it.
That's what I got.
That's a good one. You got to dig in and you got to take shots. If you don't try, but also, we're all going to just sit here and not advance.
Right. But also
nothing will change.
Yeah. Keep that perspective. I like that of anything is progress.
Yeah.
Well, probably.
Probably. Lots of things.
As long as it's not the opposite.
Anything well-intentioned.
Let's
say anything well-intentioned. Well, I'll put my caveat on that.
For sure. Well, that's excellent. And thank you for such an absolutely awesome conversation. Thank you for taking the time out of your day, especially after doing research and looking at spreadsheets and numbers all day. Right. I hope we were a welcome distraction to the day. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Always a massive thanks to all of you, Pebbles. You're amazing. We can't do this out of support. As we've said so many times, subscribe, follow, and engage, click the like button, go to thegravelot.com, do all that stuff. That's all for this week. So subscribe, follow, engage, because as you know, decisions and trails are made by those who show up. So if we don't see you on the trails this week, we'll see you next time. Bye, John.
Bye, Doug.
Thank you.